Friday, October 13th, 1307. A chill spreads across the kingdom of France. Before sunrise, the king's men ride through the dark streets, torches flickering in their hands. They knock down iron gates, break into monasteries, and storm into the homes of armored knights. One by one, the proud warriors of the Order of the Knights Templar are dragged from their beds, arrested, humiliated, and chained. These were no ordinary soldiers. They were holy warriors, defenders of the Christian faith, protectors of pilgrims and heroes of the Crusades. Yet now they are accused of the unthinkable, of denying Christ, of worshiping idols, of secret rituals and heresy. Across France, thousands are imprisoned, dozens are tortured, many are burned at the stake. What had gone wrong? How did the most respected and feared order in medieval Christendom fall overnight, from glory to ashes? The story of the Knights Templar is not merely a tale of faith and war. It is a story of power, wealth, betrayal, and perhaps injustice. Were these men truly guilty of dark crimes against the Church? Or were they victims of one of the greatest political conspiracies in history? To answer that, we must journey back 2 centuries, to the beginning of their legend. 1. The birth of the Knights Templar, from pilgrims protectors to holy warriors. Bar 1 the year was 1119. Jerusalem, once lost to Islam, had been recaptured by the Christian Crusaders. Pilgrims from across Europe now traveled to the Holy Land, hoping to walk the path where Christ once stood. But the roads were not safe. Bandits, raiders, and mercenaries haunted the deserts. Thousands were robbed or murdered on their journey. Among those who saw this suffering was a French nobleman, Hugues de Payens. With a handful of companions, he made a vow before God to live in poverty, chastity, and obedience, and to protect pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land, even at the cost of their own lives. They called themselves the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. In time, the world would know them simply as the Knights Templar. The order began humbly. They owned no land. They lived in small quarters near the Temple Mount, the sacred ruins in Jerusalem believed to stand upon the ancient Temple of Solomon itself. There they prayed, trained, and guarded the pilgrim's road. For 9 long years they survived only on donations. Then, in 1129, the Church formally recognized the order. At the Council of Troy, their way of life was approved and blessed by the Pope himself. The Templars became warrior monks, half monastic, half military. They took vows like monks, but they fought like soldiers. Their symbol, a red cross on a white cloak, became a sign of divine courage. Within decades, they transformed into the most elite fighting force in Christendom. Templar knights led charges in battle, their discipline unmatched, their faith unshaken. Muslims feared them, kings admired them, and the Church trusted them, perhaps too much, because along with fame came wealth. The Templars soon owned land, castles, and ships. They operated banks across Europe. Nobles deposited their treasure with them. Kings borrowed from them. They became not just warriors of God, but the bankers of Europe, and it was this power, this wealth, that would seal their fate. For now they stood at the height of glory, respected, powerful, untouchable. But the higher they rose, the greater the shadow beneath them grew, and soon that shadow would take the shape of a king. The rise of jealousy and the enemy within, King Philip IV of France. As the Templars' influence spread across Europe, Their wealth grew beyond imagination. They owned vast estates, manned fortresses, and controlled trade routes from England to Jerusalem. They were not just soldiers anymore. They were bankers. And in a medieval world ruled by gold and God, that made them powerful, dangerously powerful. At the same time, France was bleeding. King Philip IV, known as Philip the Fair, was tall, handsome, and ruthless. His wars with England and Flanders had drained his treasury. He was desperate for money. And who in France had more gold than the Knights Templar? But Philip's debts to the Templars ran deep. Too deep. He had borrowed heavily from them to finance his wars. Repayment was nearly impossible, so the king began to see not holy warriors, but obstacles. Var one, Fabre. At first, Philip tried diplomacy. He requested loans, favors, even influence over the church, but the Templars remained loyal only to the Pope, not to kings, not to crowns. Their allegiance was spiritual, not political. That loyalty enraged Philip. He began to spread whispers that the Templars were arrogant, corrupt, that their secret rituals hid dark truths. Whispers turned to rumors. Rumors turned to fear, and fear became a weapon. 1.5. To destroy the Templars, Philip needed the Pope's help, but the Pope at the time, Boniface VIII, opposed him. When the Pope died, Philip saw his chance. He placed his own ally on the papal throne, Clement V, a Frenchman, a puppet. Now, both church and crown were in the king's hand, and with that, the stage was set for one of the darkest betrayals in medieval history. We're one high. As dawn broke on Friday, October 13th, 1307, a quiet order was sent across France. Arrest every Templar, seize their property, confiscate their wealth. The once mighty knights were taken from their castles and dragged in chains. Their leader, Jacques de Molay, was imprisoned, accused of heresy, blasphemy, and worse. The world that once praised them was about to turn against them. Were 1.5. The trial of the Templars, torture, lies, and confession. Marga 1.5, October 13th, 1307, a day that would be remembered for centuries. Across France, the mighty Knights Templar, once heroes of Christendom, were dragged from their halls and cast into dark, cold dungeons. The charges were shocking: worshiping idols, spitting on the cross, denying Christ, engaging in unholy rituals under the cover of night. To the common people, these accusations were unthinkable, but fear spreads fast, especially when whispered by both king and pope. 1. King Philip's men worked with terrifying efficiency. Templars were imprisoned, stripped, and interrogated. When persuasion failed, torture began. The rack creaked, flesh tore, bones broke, and, under unimaginable pain, men confessed to anything their captors demanded. One by one, these confessions piled up, becoming the proof Philip needed to condemn them all. A lie repeated by 100 tortured voices sounded like the truth. Number 1.5. At first, Pope Clement V hesitated. He doubted the charges, suspecting Philip's greed more than the Templars' guilt. But the king's political pressure was relentless. Letters, threats, and manipulation surrounded the Vatican. Finally, the Pope gave in and ordered the Templar order dissolved. In a single decree, the once holy defenders of the cross were erased from existence. Noan Fe. Among those captured was Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Templars. He had served God faithfully for more than 40 years. Even under torture, he refused to betray his brothers. When forced to confess, he did so only under duress, and later recanted every word. Standing before the crowd in Paris, He shouted that the Templars were innocent, that their only crime was being richer than their enemies. But 1-5, for that defiance, Jacques de Molay was burned alive on March 18th, 1314. As the flames rose, witnesses claimed he cursed both king and pope, calling them to face God's judgment within a year. And, strangely enough, both King Philip and Pope Clement died within 12 months. Coincidence or divine justice? For one, the ashes of the Templars scattered on the Seine, but their legend did not die. It whispered through time of treasure, betrayal, and secret brotherhoods that might still walk among us today. For 1-5, legacy of the Templars, myth, treasure, and modern secrets. 1-5. When the last flames died on the Ile de la Cité, many believed the story of the Knights Templar had ended, but in truth, it had only just begun. 1.5. Before the arrests, whispers spoke of wagons leaving Paris at night. They were said to carry gold, relics, and sacred documents, the wealth of the Templar order. When the king's soldiers stormed their vaults, they found nothing. The treasure of the Templars had vanished. Some say it was hidden deep beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Others claim it crossed the sea to Scotland or even to the New World, long before Columbus. No one knows for sure, but the mystery fueled legends that still burn bright today. 1.5. After their fall, surviving Templars scattered across Europe. Some changed names, others joined new orders, and a few, historians believe, may have gone underground, forming the roots of later secret brotherhoods, the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians. Even modern conspiracies about the Illuminati trace their origins back to the Templar myth. Whether fact or fiction, the Templars became symbols of hidden wisdom, forbidden knowledge, and rebellion against corrupt power. We're 1.5 by. Centuries passed, yet their influence remained. The red cross on a white mantle, once feared on battlefields, became a mark of mystery in literature, film, and religion. Writers from Sir Walter Scott to Dan Brown revived the Templar legend, mixing faith, politics, and treasure into stories that captivated millions. Even today, in old European cathedrals and secret archives, you can still find the Templar seal, a silent reminder of an order that refused to die. Were 1.5. So, were the Knights Templar guilty of the crimes laid against them, or were they victims of power and greed? The truth may never be fully known. Their confessions were forged in agony. Their wealth was seized by kings. Their faith was manipulated by politics. Perhaps the real crime was believing too deeply in ideals that threatened the powerful. 1.5. More than 700 years have passed, yet the story of the Templars still calls to us. A tale of devotion, betrayal, and mystery. Their temples have turned to dust, their banners long gone. But their spirit, the courage to stand by faith, even in fire, remains unbroken. The Knights Templar. Heroes, heretics, or perhaps something far more human. 1.5. Because in the end, every legend hides a truth, and every truth begins with a question.